So you're thinking of moving to the Oklahoma City area, but you're just not that familiar with the layout of the city. Well, no problem. Thanks so much for joining me here today. On this channel, I talk about all things Oklahoma City and all of its surrounding suburbs. I talk to people just like you every day, and that's why from time to time I like to just hop in the map and show you around a little bit. So if that's something you'd find helpful, then stick around. We're gonna get right into that. But quickly, if you're thinking of moving to the Oklahoma City area, whether it's in the next few weeks or few months from now, listen, I would love to have the opportunity to help you make that smooth move right here to OKC. So you're gonna find my contact information right down below in the description, so feel free to shoot me a call, text, or email, or even better, click the link below to schedule a one-on-one video call with me so that we can discuss how I can help you buy that perfect home right here in OKC. All right, hopping into the map. Okay, so usually first things first, what I like to do is give just a little bit of an overview of not only just the area here, as you may be familiar, or probably are if you ended up on this channel. Oklahoma City located right here, pretty much centrally located city. And this is the general overview of that whole metro area. So one thing I think is helpful to know first is just kind of a little bit about the highway systems here. So you've got I-35 running north and south down kind of the center of the city. And then across from west to east or east to west, you've got I-40. And then you've got some other pretty helpful highways here to know about, which is this is 44. There's also the turnpike, the Kilpatrick Turnpike, and this goes all the way around kind of the top to the western, sort of the northwest quadrant, and down south along where Piedmont, Yukon, Mustang is. You're going to be driving on that quite a bit if you live in sort of that quadrant of the city. And then let's see, another helpful one to know is this 77 right here. That's also known as I-235. As it gets a little bit closer down to the junction here at I-40, it turns into 35, and as it goes north, it turns into what we call Broadway Extension, and it takes you right into Edmond, Oklahoma. Now down here on the lower side of the metro area, you'll find I-240, and it runs along that south side of the metro area. It kind of cuts in between Moore here and Oklahoma City proper. So that's a general breakdown of kind of the highway system. So let's talk a little bit about kind of just get a little familiar with the city and some of the landmarks. I think that would be helpful. So first things first, I think it's helpful usually just to kind of start out center city. As you might imagine, downtown Oklahoma City is located pretty much right in the center of the city. And we'll get in a little closer here. We'll talk about some of the landmarks that I've visited on this channel. Again, this is I-40 running east and west through downtown. Just south of that is the Oklahoma River, running just south of I-40. And right here you'll see Scissortail Park. That's a park that I both talk about on this channel, and I've also visited several times. So you may have seen some of that park while watching this channel. So that's located right there, and just to the north of that is what is the Myriad Botanical Gardens, which is absolutely beautiful. I actually just did a video last week, so you're welcome to check that out, but I visited both the Myriad Botanical Gardens and Scissortail Park. Really a fun time, so check that out when you get a chance. But also down here in the downtown area, one of the oldest entertainment districts here in the city is known as Bricktown. That's kind of right here in that same area. And then you've got the canal that runs along here, which is really cool. I also visited that one in my last video. So that's kind of a rundown of really sort of the more, I guess, highly visited areas in downtown. So let's get a scale a little bit out and check out a little more of the surrounding areas. So, one other thing I would like to mention, if you make a trip here, something I definitely recommend, just sort of a little bit north of Scissortail Park in this general area downtown, is the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum. Definitely recommend checking that out. It is a little bit of a somber trip, but it's worth seeing, and it's definitely part of our history here. All right, so scaling out a little bit, just north of that is another area, kind of a downtown area called Midtown, and you'll find these little kind of pockets, Automobile Alley, another sort of entertainment district in the downtown area. And as you go a little further north, you're going to find Uptown, and there's really several of these little cool districts throughout the city. I definitely recommend checking out. I've got a video on my channel all about all of the entertainment districts, so that's worth checking out. Now let's talk a little bit about kind of the surrounding suburbs, I think, and then we'll sort of take those one by one and get you a little more familiar with those. So one of the most popular suburbs most certainly is Edmond, and that's located on the north side of the Oklahoma City Metro. Now, as I mentioned, if you were coming out of downtown Oklahoma City, you would follow this 235 or 77 turns into what we call Broadway Extension. It's going to take you right into downtown Edmond right here. And that's where you're going to find things like on several Saturdays throughout the year, they have what's called Herd on Herd, where they have live music and all kinds of food trucks. It's a really fun time. And then another thing that Edmond is known for, just outside of its really popular suburb, is going to be the University of Central Oklahoma, or UCO. So that's located not too far from this downtown area. Really, it's pretty walkable. And Edmond kind of spans over this whole general area and actually even spans a little bit to the west. That's really more kind of West Edmond. Everything east is sort of more like Old Edmond. And if you go a little further east, you're going to find Arcadia Lake, which is certainly worth visiting. It's a really pretty lake and something cool to have right here in the OKC Metro. If you, in the summertime, want to go to a lake, it's a really good spot to visit, really drivable. So we're gonna head a little bit more along to the northwest here. As you continue through Western Edmond, you'll eventually end up over here in the Piedmont area, which there's not a whole lot to talk about in terms of landmarks in Piedmont, but it's just kind of a smaller town. Some people really enjoy that smaller town vibe. I actually do kind of a lesser known suburbs video that's worth checking out, so that might be worth your time after this video. But we're gonna continue on around to kind of the south here, and that's gonna take you into Yukon, which is sort of the furthest west you can be in the metro and still be really kind of like in the metro. And Yukon is becoming increasingly more popular. For a lot of people that I'm helping buy homes as they're moving from all over the country, Yukon is becoming a really great alternative to Edmond because it's a much smaller community. With Yukon, you've got somewhere around 27,000 people living in Yukon, whereas Edmond, you've got almost 100,000. So it's just a little more of a small town vibe, but it's still got all of the sort of bigger city amenities. Like you're gonna have a Walmart and a Target and a Best Buy and all the things that you kind of want in a city, but you're gonna get a little more of that rural vibe too, if that's more your thing. But one of the things that's really drawing people to Edmond, of course, is the exceptional schools. So that is one reason why Yukon is a good alternative, because Yukon's got some pretty great schools too. And fun fact, Yukon is actually where Garth Brooks spent most of his time growing up. So that's really kind of one of their claims to fame out there in Yukon. So we're gonna kind of continue our trek southbound down sort of this west side of the city metro, and we're gonna head down over to Mustang. So Mustang is sort of on that southwest corner of the OKC Metro. Much like Yukon, they're almost kind of sister communities. They really come up next to each other. In fact, you can live on the southern point of Yukon and be in Mustang schools. You can live on the northern side of Mustang and be in Yukon schools, so if that's not confusing. But they're really right next to each other and they're very kind of similar vibes. So if you're looking for good schools and a little bit of a smaller town, Mustang and Yukon are going to be good alternatives to somewhere like Edmond. Okay, so before we hop into any other suburbs, I just kind of want to point out, as you start to head back towards the city from Mustang, you're going to see the Will Rogers Airport here, which is, the major Oklahoma City airport that, flies out to virtually every major city, tons of direct flights. This is going to be kind of located in that southwest quadrant of the city. So as we head along this 240 over here, it's going to take us into this area right here, kind of just below the south side of Oklahoma City proper, and that's going to take us into Moore. Now, Moore is a really convenient little suburb location. It's a town of about 63,000 people, and it's pretty convenient because just to the south of Moore is another rather large city and part of the Oklahoma City Metro in Norman, and then just to the north of Moore, you've got Oklahoma City. So you've kind of got the best of both worlds, but you still kind of live in a relatively larger suburb. Again, 63,000 people is not small as far as the suburbs are concerned. So a lot of people really like that. It runs right along I-35, easy to get in and out of town. So that's a good choice for some people who don't want to live maybe in the biggest OKC metro suburbs like Norman or Edmond, but they don't want to live in the smallest either. It's a good sort of compromise there and more. Now we're going to head a little bit further south into Norman, and if anybody watches college sports, you may have heard of Norman because that's where the University of Oklahoma is. So that's kind of mostly its kind of sort of claim to fame, I guess, if you will, and it's a pretty big little city down there. Close to 130,000 people, certainly not a small city, so Norman is a good alternative for anybody who doesn't want to live directly in Oklahoma City, but they want to kind of live in a bigger city. That's a great option for you. Now, it's worth noting while I'm down here kind of on this side of the metro that, again, there's going to be a couple sort of notable smaller suburbs that I've talked about on this channel before, kind of directly here to the west of Norman is Newcastle, and that's a good smaller town of about 15,000 people that is kind of rapidly growing, so that's become a good option that's sort of appealing to a lot of people. Right over here is Bridge Creek, just to the west of that, and that's an even smaller town, but really nice. And to the south of Newcastle is Blanchard. These are all sort of similar, smaller vibe. You can just imagine small town America. And then back over here kind of towards Norman, if you head just directly south down I-35, you'll end up in Purcell, which is an increasingly popular area to get outside of the city or outside of the metro. Cool little town down there. So certainly an option if those small towns are kind of your vibe. All right, now let's drive back up I-35 and we'll get kind of back near the main part of the city here. A couple things to note here. So over here you've got Del City and Midwest City. They're kind of sister communities there as well. And one notable thing about that area is you've got the Tinker Air Force Base. So anybody who has any family that's in the Air Force, you may have heard of Tinker. It's a pretty big Air Force base here in the Oklahoma City area. So yeah, that's where that's kind of located over here, sort of on the southeast side of the Oklahoma City area. And then out here to the eastern side of the metro, you're going to find several of those kind of smaller town suburbs, and it seems like there's kind of never-ending small towns here in Oklahoma, but the ones that are kind of closer to Oklahoma City are becoming increasingly more popular. Lots of people moving from all over the country don't necessarily want to end up in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, but they wouldn't mind living in a smaller town that has accessibility to the city. So some options there that might be appealing to some are Choctaw, which is an area that's not quite outside of the city, but you can see it's a good 25-minute drive outside of downtown Oklahoma City. And then you've got a few kind of smaller ones like Nakoma Park, you've got Spencer here, you've got Hera directly to the east of that. And then as you go a little bit further north, you've got Jones here, which is once again another one of those kind of smaller towns. If you go a little bit further to the north of there, you've got Arcadia, which is kind of an affluent, smaller town that really almost feels like an extension of Edmond. Of course, it's on the other side of Lake Arcadia, which is in Edmond. That kind of covers the outskirts of that eastern side in terms of like the more known smaller towns. Now, let's talk about a couple of other sort of notable suburbs or cities right in Oklahoma City that I think are worth mentioning. One of them is Nichols Hills right here, which is kind of in the northwest quadrant here. That's a very affluent area. That's where you're going to find your attorneys, your doctors, your OKC Thunder players. And then just to the north of that, you're going to find the Village, which is actually where I live. And it's a great little small town of about 10,000 people it's surrounded by all sides by Oklahoma City proper. So it really is kind of in the city, but technically it's its own city. And the Village is a great place to live and really pretty affordable, which I can't say the same about Nichols Hills, but hey, listen, if you are looking for one of the luxury areas, Nichols Hills is where you probably want to end up. And directly to the west here of the Village, you're going to find Lake Hefner, which is one of my favorite areas of the city. And I actually visit there quite a bit. You may have seen me there on this channel. Right along this side of the lake is several restaurants you can go eat at, and just really it's a great place to go take a walk. Some of the best sunsets that you're going to see in the city. And we'll kind of head out to the east of that and some things that are kind of worth taking a look at. You've got your National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, which is a very, very fun place to go. I definitely recommend checking that out if you're in Oklahoma City. One of the many museums that I would consider a must-see. And then kind of in the same area, in an area nearby, it's called the Adventure District, which is where you're going to find the Oklahoma City Zoo. And right there by the zoo in the Adventure District is also the Science Museum Oklahoma, which if you're here in the city and you've got your kids with you, go check that place out because the kids are going to love it. You're going to love it. I love that place. But other than that, like I said, if you're interested in learning about any of these smaller suburbs, I definitely recommend checking out that video. But if you're interested in checking out more of the bigger and more popular suburbs, I highly recommend that you check out this video right here. And as always, guys, thanks so much. Until next time, I certainly hope to okay. See you soon. See ya.